Good morning, Detroit. Welcome to the 4th edition of Sip Coffee with Cathy. I am excited because I had an opportunity to go on location and film this 4th edition. So welcome. I am at St. Joe's Pontiac, St. Joseph Mercy Oakland Hospital in Pontiac, Michigan, and I had an opportunity to, like I said, film on location. So to my regular viewers, thank you for joining me and welcome back. And to my new viewers, I'd like an opportunity to introduce myself. Welcome to my show. My name is Cathy Mott, and I am a life coach. I am passionate about personal growth and development and helping people to move forward in life. I'm also an executive coach and the CEO of my own company, CWC Leadership Development, and I specialize in executive coaching and leadership training. I am also a social and emotional intelligence coach. So that's a little bit about me for my new viewers. My subject matter for today, it's kind of like a pickup of where we left off last month. So last month I had two individuals join me and we talked about finding our natural gifts and talents and then using those to work their passion. So I had one individual, Tiffany the trainer, who had left corporate America and gone on to become a physical fitness guru. And then I had Mr. Gross, who was still in corporate America, but yet still working his passion and helping young men straighten out their lives. Tiffany's friends helped her to find her gifts and talents, and then Mr. Gross's mother and father helped him to find his natural gifts and talents. But however, I didn't get an opportunity to tell you my story. So I'm kind of taking you back to where it all began for me here at St. Joe's Oakland in Pontiac, Michigan. So I'm going to share my story with you and how it all began and how I landed here on Sip Coffee with Cathy. But first of all, I'd like to tell you who was very instrumental in helping me find my gifts and talents, and it was actually my husband. I'll take you back 35 years ago and tell you this story about our very first date. So 35 years ago, we're riding in the car, and he looks over at me and he says, "You know what I like about you?" And I go, "What?" And he says, "It feels like I've known you forever." And I'm thinking to myself, that tired line, you got to come better than that. So fast forward 20 years into our marriage, we're coming home from Sunday service. And he looks over at me once I get into the car and he says, "You know what I like about you?" And I go, "What?" And he says, "You make everyone feel as if they've known you forever." So at that moment, I thought back to that first conversation and I put two and two together. I knew I had something special there, but then I also began to think about the conversations I've had with people, and they would consistently say, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you things that I've never told people before." So I know that I have a genuine love for people. I make people feel safe, and I create a space for them to have open dialogue and conversation with me. And I always feel like people are like a book to me. If I get you to tell my story, I don't have to read the book, and I love to hear personal autobiographies. So that's my natural gift and talent, and I'm taking you back to St. Joe's because I recognize that not everyone can leave their job to pursue their natural gifts and talents or to pursue their passion at this given time. But it doesn't mean that just because where you are today is where you'll always be. So I want you to think about, are there opportunities in your current situation where you can discover your natural gifts and talents and maybe step into other projects or platforms to develop those and grow and then move on to live your passion? So that's what I had an opportunity to do at St. Joseph Mercy Oakland, where I worked for total of 12 years, but 8 years in being able to work my natural gifts and talents. And I stepped into a platform and began to master those skills, if you will, and go on to bigger and better things. So I had the opportunity, the privilege to, again, film on location at St. Joe's, and I had the privilege to interview Mr. Jack Weiner, the CEO and president of St. Joseph Mercy Oakland. So I am going to share that interview with you. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. If you haven't had an opportunity to grab your cup of coffee, I suggest that you do, and join me back in 2 minutes. But first, check out my supporting sponsors, and I'll see you in 2. Welcome back, Detroit. I hope you had an opportunity to grab your cup of coffee and join me on location. As I promised earlier, I would go on location and share with you how I was helped to discover my natural gifts and talents and work my passion at the same time. So I am here at St. Joseph Mercy Oakland Hospital in Pontiac, and I am sitting with someone who was very instrumental in helping me find my natural gifts and talents and work my passion. I am sitting here with Mr. Jack Weiner, who is the president and CEO of St. Joseph Mercy Oakland. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Cathy.
I'm so happy to have you here sipping coffee with Cathy. So let me start by giving you a little bit of background information on Jack. If I read his entire bio, my show would be over. So I'm just going to give you a few snippets or highlights from his bio. He is the president and CEO of St. Joseph Mercy Oakland and has led this organization in a major cultural transformation and a $300 million campus redevelopment. It's a 443-bed community teaching hospital in Oakland County, and under his leadership, this hospital became the regional leader in clinical quality and safety. The campus redevelopment and expansion includes the construction of a new patient tower, and we're sitting here in this beautiful South Tower lobby. It has a fireplace, it has mosaic artwork, it also has a waterfall, all to improve the patient experience. And this new tower has state-of-the-art technology that's found only in one other hospital throughout the country. Some of the other leadership roles that Jack Weiner has held is President and CEO of St. Joseph Mercy of Macomb. There he led a $30 million expansion program. President and CEO of Northeastern Hospital in Philadelphia. President of Mount Clemens General Hospital in Macomb, Michigan. So those are just a few of the positions he's held in the past. So Jack, you have always been a thought leader in transforming healthcare, if you will. So as I read over your bio and look at all of the accomplishments and the impact that you've had on healthcare, what has been the most rewarding for you?
I think there are two things. One, it's the people, because you make relationships. You have the opportunity to help people find their passion, to move around in what they do until they are satisfied with what they're accomplishing. The other thing, it's a service industry. We serve people. Hospitals reside in communities that rely on that institution even more than they understand, and it shows up when we have natural disasters, we have blackouts. Then the hospitals become almost points of safety where people can come, understand that we have made preparations for those kinds of situations. So we really become important in communities, and that's important to understand.
Very nice, very nice. So a few years ago, back in 2008, I believe it was, you wanted to do something different. You wanted to transform the culture of this hospital. We started in 2003, and this hospital was, like you see in the old movies, white walls as we walked through the hospital. But not only did you want to transform the building structure, you wanted to transform the way we interacted with each other. What made you want to take that undertaking?
Well, a lot of it's personal experience. My father was in a hospital for the last year of his life in New York City, and I was watching things go on that I felt were contrary to a healing environment. And the more frustrated I got, the more I wanted to ask myself, is this what I'm delivering in my organization? And unfortunately, all too often the answer was yes. That I was not doing what I knew was right. And so we needed to change things. The other part of it was this was an organization that was having some difficulties in delivering product. There was a turmoil within the organization where people were not working together, and we needed to fix that. So we started down a pathway to identify what is it we're doing, why are we doing it, and how do we change it?
Kudos to you for an honest assessment of what was going on in your organization. So how did you begin this undertaking, this cultural transformation?
Well, I had the opportunity through a number of friends to meet some people who were really thinking out of the box, and really got me thinking about how do we treat people as individuals, that we're not treating ethnic groups or religious groups or racial activities. We're really treating people. And when they come in, yes, they have a characteristic of an organization or of a group of people, but they all are individual. They have families, they have community activities they get involved in, they go to different churches. And when you start to look at that fabric, we needed to understand that we have to treat each of these people as an individual if we're going to have the kind of relationships we want to have with them.
Absolutely.
So that was the genesis of the project.
And I, as I go throughout different organizations facilitating leadership development training, what I have come to appreciate is you put 3,000 people through this particular training. How wonderful was that you decided to invest in everyone within the organization? What made you decide to do that?
When we started to look at the cultural transformation, it doesn't happen in a CEO's office. I talked to 15, 20 people during a day. I have 3,000 people that are interacting with thousands of people every day. I can't script it. I can't put on a little smile button and say this is a culture change. We felt we really needed to create a program that taught people how to interact appropriately. And we put together some elements of that program. We had a vision of what it was going to be, but the reality was, Cathy, you and your colleagues did a lot more than we ever anticipated. You took the ball, you ran with it, you never even asked for permission. You just did it and said, here it is.
That's what happens when you're working your passion. So the principles of the program was how to engage the patient on a mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional level. And so we recognized in order to do that, then we'd have to create that experience for each and every individual within the hospital. And so that's what began to happen.
Absolutely. And one of the amazing things was what we didn't realize was that one of the core skills of being successful is the fact that most people didn't have a clue on how to interact.
Yes.
They didn't know how to talk to somebody. Even worse, they didn't know how to listen to somebody. And so through a series of interactional activities and lectures and focusing on reaching for a higher attainment than people normally talk about, we were able to move essentially 3,000 people down a pathway that has paid tremendous dividends.
Yes, and definitely changed the culture. So we know that initially it started off to improve patient satisfaction, but it morphed into something much bigger than that. When did you realize that it was having a bigger impact on your employees than you thought?
Probably the first time one of our employees came up to me and was thanking me for the journey experience, and then told me it allowed her, it just happened to be one of our female employees, it allowed her to deal with a very troubling situation at home that she couldn't express in words, but she was in an abusive relationship. And it gave her the skill set to confront what reality was and to make a change. And she came in and said, thank you, because this program gave me those skills that allowed me to change my life. And basically it was allowing her to take control of her life where she had given it up to somebody else.
Wow.
And I have more stories about it than probably anything else.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, I said, I didn't realize we were making a lifestyle change program, because that was never the intent. But it, it does open your eyes to what happens when you give people new skills and allow them the freedom to exercise it.
Yes, very nice. And my passion is helping people grow personally, that personal growth and development. And through this platform that you created, I was able to step into that platform, live my gifts and talents, live my passion, and also bring in the spiritual piece.
Cathy, you didn't step into it.
I
You
didn't.
absorbed it. You swallowed it hook, line, and sinker, and you ran with it.
It was so close to what I believe my core values. So thank you so much for that opportunity. So one more question I'd like to ask. As you move forward to other things, what legacy will you leave behind?
A lot of people like to talk about buildings and technologies and artwork. It's really not. It's people. It's people that you train and go on to fulfill their passion. I was looking at it the other day. I have at least 23 people that I can document that have worked for me who have gone on to be the CEO of their own organization. Others have stepped into roles. I know I had two other people that I know have been involved here, are doing executive development, coaching, and involved in that, some of which are your friends that you're working with. And it's incredible to go back and understand that people have developed and grown and had the opportunity to step out of what might have been considered their traditional role.
Yes.
You were an administrative assistant.
Yes.
Whoever would have known that from that you would have taken on this project and then developed your own company. Cindy, one of your friends, was a nurse. Now doing that kind of activity. Roxanne Pals from corporate is now a consultant to Qantas, helping them with their organizational development.
Yes.
That's an incredible legacy.
It is.
And buildings come and go, and as I tell people, 5 years from now, nobody will know who built this building. I'll walk through, and most people won't be here who are here now. But the culture, I hope, remains.
Well, I'm happy to have on tape an opportunity to say thank you for allowing me to step into this role, for allowing me to discover my natural gifts and talents, and giving me the autonomy that I needed to work my passion. So I am part of your legacy. So thank you so much.
And a very significant one.
Indeed. So thank you so much, Jack, for coming to Sip Coffee with Cathy.
You're quite welcome.
I'll see you around, I know.
Okay.
All right. All right, so we are going to take a commercial break, and you can see who some of my supporting sponsors are, and we'll be back in 2 minutes, still live on location in Pontiac, Michigan.
Good morning. My name is Jack Weiner. I'm the president and CEO of St. Joseph Mercy Oakland, Sip Coffee with Cathy TV show.
I also wanted to give my scriptural precedent for today's show. So I thought about Joseph in the 39th chapter of Genesis. He was actually in a job that he didn't necessarily enjoy, but he made the best out of it. He was in prison. And not to say that our jobs in corporate America or anything like that is likened to prison, But sometimes we're in a particular space and we don't want to be there. But what can we do to make it better and to look at it from a different light? Joseph was in prison for 13 years, but it prepared him for his next role and where he would be second in command to Pharaoh. So where you are today, your job today, can you look at it differently? Find a place to work your natural gifts and talents and know that it's preparing you for your next role in the future. I'll see you soon. So that was my scriptural precedent for this week or this month's show. I always like to use a scriptural precedent because as I'm learning and growing, I always like to take a peek in the scriptures to see where did this happen before? And I will study that particular part of the scriptures to see how their life turned out and what tools and techniques did they use and how did our Heavenly Father show up in their lives. So definitely I had an opportunity to do that the entire time I was at St. Joe's. I would also like to encourage individuals who are looking and wondering how they can move forward to maybe get a sponsor at work or a mentor. I was also blessed to have a very fabulous boss, Tony Flowers Jefferson, shout out to you, who also recognized my gifts and talents and would always give me creative assignments to do. I had the privilege of working on a creative assignment. It was called the Pathway to Excellence. The hospital actually tore down their parking structure and they had to build a bridge across Woodward. So my assignment was to create an experience for all of the employees as they walked across the bridge to work. And so what I did was I took the guiding behaviors or the principles that the organization lived by and placed messages on each column of the bridge so that the employees would have a reminder every day of how to treat the patient. And then because I'm so big on self-care, I wanted them to remind themselves to care for themselves as they exited the building. On the columns was messages about self-care and how to care for themselves. And the name of the bridge was entitled The Pathway to Excellence. I walked that bridge hundreds of times while I was there, feeling proud and being fully present in the message, coming into work, living my life and performing excellence in my assignments. And then as I was going home, I would take to heart those self-care messages. So I asked Jack if he would walk that bridge with me one last time together. So take a peek at our special walk together on the pathway to excellence. So for my viewers, I'd like to encourage you to create your pathway to excellence. If you're in a space and you no longer want to be there, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Do something different to move forward. That may include hiring a life coach. If you're interested in hiring a life coach, hey, I'm available. Every coach needs a coach, but we also need a coach to move forward in life. When we become stagnant, I liken it to a cup of coffee or a pot of coffee when you go into the restaurant and it's been sitting there for a while and it has become bitter, it has become stale. And they pour you a cup of that coffee and you say, I want a fresh cup. So I implore you, start something fresh and new in your life. Don't become bitter, don't become stale, move forward. So, as usual, I always give a self-care challenge. So my self-care challenge this month is spirituality. First self-care challenge was a journal, emotional. The second was meditation, that was mental. Tiffany the trainer gave us a physical self-care challenge last month, so spiritual this month. So I'd like to encourage you to read the 39th chapter of Genesis, 39 and 40th chapter. Or if that's not your forte, maybe take a walk in nature. But take care of yourself in a spiritual way this month. And before I go, I'd like to tell you about my new YouTube channel. People have been calling the station and saying, when are you going to air the lady with the coffee cup? The lady with the coffee cup. So once a month is not enough, so I'm starting Motivational Mondays on my YouTube channel. You can find it at Sip Coffee with Cathy on YouTube, and I'd like for you to join me every Monday for an inspiration to get you started off in the right direction for your week. Thank you so much for joining me, Sip Coffee with Cathy, on location at St. Joseph Mercy, Oakland. Thank you to my friends at St. Joe's, and to my viewers, I'll see you next week. It's been a great show. Have a great month.